Cool. So, hello guys, hello all. Thank you for coming today. For today's session, we're planning to do a very quick change regarding the overall session. Let me open my board now, because today we don't want to stay here like 5 hours like yesterday. So, but it all depends of you, of course. As there are some topics that Aman and me want to cover related to representation. I don't know, what do you think if today we just focus on tutorials and tomorrow we discuss about the projects? I don't know, what do you think? If that's okay, we can continue. However, if you want to share something with us, feel free to do it, of course. However, at the end of the tutorial part, is it okay, guys? If that's okay, I can continue. Why not?
Can I ask some queries related to Houdini?
Yeah, sure, man. Please do it.
Okay, I'll just present what I've done. Like I'm following the workflows shared in the during the workshop.
Are you going to share a screen?
Yes, I'll just present.
Nice. Please do it. You also had some issues regarding Maya. I answered you through Discord. Your problem with the latest part.
Really sorry, I did not check the Discord because I just started working on Maya. I'll just check that as
okay.
well.
Okay. No worries. Later.
I did not check the Discord. Eventually, when I was trying to do that, Control C, Control V, I was using earlier Control D to duplicate the lattice. And if I use Control C, Control V, so that solves the issue.
Oh, really? That's nice. I didn't know that, but that's cool. That's okay.
So I wanted to know what is the advantage of using the VDB resample? Because if I use VDB from polygons, and if I use VDB for examples, VDB resample, the difference is very, hard to see. Not very significant, and we also did not touch any kind of parameters in the VDB resample. So, what is the use of using this VDB resample?
Could you turn it off? I've never used that before, but it seems that it adds more. It seems that it's adding more voxels. However, can we see your VDB from polygon nodes parameters, please?
Okay, yes. Okay, in the I.
Okay. Anyway, here it says you have okay, almost 1,000,668. Okay, 688. In the next one, how many voxels do you have?
542.
You have less. Okay. Okay, it's reducing. I think by default it's reducing the voxels. So you at the end you're losing resolution. But the good thing about resample node is that you can adjust maybe the distribution of these voxels. That could be. I've never used that before, because when I want to add more resolution to my voxels, what I usually do is I reduce the size of every voxel in the previous node. If you go to the VDB from polygon node,
Okay.
Can we see the parameters of those, please? Just there you may see there is a parameter called voxel size. So that means that right now you have voxels that has that dimension. If you reduce that number, that means that you will have smaller voxels. So in consequence, you will have more voxels. So for example, change that value, instead of 0.1, change it for 0.05, for example.
Yes, this voxel, the principle behind voxels, I understand, is like pixels. The more number of pixels your image has, it becomes denser and more. The quality of the image increases.
You can store you can store more resolution. That's true.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So in any case, because what I'm seeing right now with resample, you're losing resolution by default. But if you want to add more resolution, I would do it through the first node.
Exactly, that's what I have been doing. Not doing for a very long time. Like I started learning Houdini last year, in last summer in 2021. So I never used VDB resample.
So I don't usually use it either. I don't usually use it either.
Probably Aman can answer that if Aman is online.
Yeah.
I mean, Aman is there.
Yeah. Basically, what it does, it's a very significant change. It's like very less, but what it does is it basically resamples the primitive of the volume into a new sort of an we could say orientation. So it kind of like works with the normals, but you don't really have to use it a lot. I just use it because it's been a habit for me to use the resample first and then the reshape. But you don't really have to use the resample. It's very less. So you can
Does it
actually not even feel it.
also like optimizes the mesh? Sorry, optimizes the VDB so that it responds in a much.
Well, no, I don't think so. I don't really know why people use it a lot because I was just checking out the tutorials when I first started to learn Houdini, and I used to see a lot of people, before they use the reshape, they used to use the resample to probably resample all the volume or the voxels. So maybe the reshape works much better with the resample. I'm not sure, but I've never seen any, great
Maybe
major advantage.
maybe to get a cleaner output at the end. However,
Yeah,
if
probably.
at the end of this particular BDB procedure, you can use delta mush to get a smoother
Yes.
mesh at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that solves with the delta mesh. So yeah, I don't think you need the resample.
Another question was that in the workflow that you used, you exported a very smooth subdivided mesh from Maya. So
Yeah.
I exported the raw flatty
Hard
rigid
model.
mesh.
Yeah, the hard model.
I subdivided it over here. So what
Okay.
is a better workflow? Should one export a high resolution mesh from Maya, or because in Houdini, I think the source file, uh, it's advisable to use the lowest, low
Yeah,
lightweight
the
file size.
lowest. Mhm. Yeah, I think you can use either one you want, but I think in this case your normals is a bit messed up. So I think after the subdivide, can you put an normal container? Normal. Yeah,
Yes.
after the subdivide.
Okay.
No, after it.
After the subdivision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then so it fixes the normals. So the one that's coming from Aya already fixed the normals and also subdivided it, but over here you like, you have to subdivide and do normals again. So that's the only
So
difference, but it's up to you.
So the this normal node basically it flips the messed up normals. It faces it flips the faces basically.
Yeah, it basically fixes the faces of your entire geometry. So it basically calculates your entire geometry and sees the where the normals is facing, in the right direction, and it fixes them in that order.
All right. So you guessed by this black color that my normals were messed up.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me just check. Yes. I'll open Maya in the background. Yes. Is there a way to disable Alt in order to orbit in Maya?
No, I don't really think so.
I don't think so. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think
you can create shortcuts, but I don't know if you can disable Alt.
yeah.
Okay. And
like in Blender. I don't know if that's possible there. I don't think so.
okay. And one more thing, that when we do mirroring, the lattice cage, that does not get mirrored. Only our object gets mirrored when it's enclosed in a lattice cage. is there a way that when we are mirroring the object, live mirroring, when we are moving, like the workflow that you showed, in which you move the object left and right and automatically blends with the entire shape. So is there a way that the object and the lattice cage both they get gelled in live?
That's a good question. I've never tried to use that. I don't think so because a lattice is only bound to that specific geometry. But in case of this, I'll have to check it out because I have never tried that approach. But Pedro, do you know if we can error the lattice itself? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Not sure really. Unless you mirrored your geometry first before going into a lattice. But using mirrored after, I don't think so. I don't think so.
But I can check it out now and I'll show you.
Maybe more. Yes, one more thing. Like there is a, let me make a copy of this. So when we go to there are list of modifiers. I mean, it lists down all the modifiers which have been applied to it. There's a history. How do I access that? I forgot. On the right hand side, there are all the modification history which is shown for every geometry.
Okay. Could you repeat your question?
On the right hand side, whenever I do any kind of modification in any kind of geometry, on the right hand side there's a history which is shown that okay, we did this, we did that, we pulled it, this, that kind of thing. I have forgotten how to do.
Oh, you need to check.
The channel box.
You need to check up there. Let me see if I can take notes here. I cannot. But up there in your just below the workspace option, you have several buttons, like 5 buttons. I don't remember if it's the first or the third, the one that you not one. This is the attribute editor. Yeah, maybe no, not the one. I think it's the next one and the fourth one, the ones that activates your history. Should be there. Okay, no, the next one, the attribute editor, should show you all the history. However, if you copy paste a model, if you copy paste a model that has an attribute that has deformations and history previously, you won't copy the history because the history is unique for every geometry.
Okay.
So if you twisted, bended, or whatever you did that stored a history on geometry, if you copy that particular model, you will get the baked or the baked version of that previous geometry. So the new one won't have those history. That's what that's the procedure you usually do in order to bake geometries in Maya by copying it. So you won't get all the attributes.
So how do we preserve the history for whenever we are duplicating? For example, like one method is like I just keep on making copies and copies to see okay where I have headed. But just like in Grasshopper, we can just literally copy paste the script, the entire node set of the script.
That's a good question. Did you try by using Ctrl+Z, Ctrl+V instead of Ctrl+D?
All right. Yes. Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V preserved it. I think.
Okay.
This is all my history, right?
No, the history should be up there. I mean, the history should be not up there, but in the second set of tabs. Yes, there. Not up there. Down. Below.
One?
Yes. Those tabs are let me I cannot request control. I don't know why. Let me see why.
I think there's a free software called
I want to take control. In any case, let me share my screen very quickly, please.
Yes. Yes, sure.
Because we don't need
in the
to
channel box your history.
Yeah, we don't need We don't have too much time to spend. Histories. When you create something, for example, like this particular model, all the history that you will see is here. Those particular tabs are part of the history of the geometry. However, if I take this particular geo and I copy it and I move it into the next one, I will lose every history. So I'm not sure, but if using Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V will help, but I don't think so, to be honest.
Yes, Control-C.
Okay,
Preserved.
it's working. Well, that's nice. Okay, so try by using it, but however, try to clean your name, the name of all the names that you have here, because when you copy something, immediately you will have this name pasted. No, blah blah blah, and that's a mess. But anyway, okay, that would help. I don't know if doing that with the lattice will help, but try to do it in any case.
And is there a way to remove a modifier, like let's say an object was bent and it was twisted, and I want to remove the twisted modification from it, like I want to delete that attribute or modification. Is it possible?
Unless you go Ctrl+Z. I don't know another method. Unless you have here, when you wanna delete history, you need to go to modify, I think. No, edit. Unless here you find delete transformations. But if there is delete transformations, probably you will delete everything, not just one. I really suggest you to do several copies before going into deformations. So every deformation step you do makes you do a new copy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes. But anyway.
Okay.
Cool. I don't know if you want to share something else. If not, we can continue. We don't have too much time today.
Yeah. Okay. Last question.
Sure. Please go on.
I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
On day one, so when Aman was teaching how like selecting faces and doing the insert loop or insert edge command. So what he was doing that, he was selecting all the faces one by one. So is that a better workflow, or just turning on this symmetry mode and then selecting faces so that they get selected?
I mean, from the start itself, he could work with symmetry itself, like how you're showing. Yeah, I mean, if you're really good with working with symmetry, then yeah, like how you're selecting at the moment, it's much more better because it selects everything from either sides. But yeah, I mean, if you're not really good with symmetry, because sometimes it gets a bit complicated when you don't know if symmetry is on and it messes up. But just for beginners, I would just recommend to first do it manually, and as you grow more into the software, then yeah, then you could definitely use symmetry.
So was it because of working with symmetry that that I was not able to create loops, because when I selected these faces and created one loop, or did some modifications, was it that the reason my geometry got corrupted and I was not able to insert loops, or was it something else? Like when I did everything from scratch, I built this geometry from scratch, everything began working fine.
Wait, so Pedro solved that, yeah? Like, didn't you solve that issue of his edge loops? It was something got
Excuse
to
me?
do with, didn't you solve his issue of the edge loops where we
Did you
had
check
those on the legs?
Did you check if your edges has subdivisions? If your edges has subdivision of vertices. No, let's go to the edge mode to see if your edges has the subdivisions.
Right now they don't have any subdivisions.
Okay, check the others.
How do I check? Like, I mean, do I see any kind of dots?
If you if you click on one particular edge, okay, if the whole edge is selected, now that means that it doesn't have subdivision. But let's select another one. The next one, I don't know. It looks fine.
Yes.
It looks
Yeah, the
fine.
third one also looks fine.
And what about the last one? The one down?
At the bottom.
Over
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that
no,
looks
no.
fine as
The
well.
one on the right. The one on the right. I cannot take notations here. I don't know why. But try to do it by turning off the symmetry. Just
All right.
to check if this is working fine.
Yeah,
You're working
eventually.
with
Eventually, I did select. Eventually, I did the entire workflow without the symmetry turned on, and it went totally, I mean, perfect. So I think
the way how I solve it when you share to me your file is by copying it into a new file. But in any case, let's do something. If the same problem still persists here, just send to us the particular model that is not working well to check it out later, because we don't have too much time today.
yes, sure.
Please.
Although the problem is solved, I was just finding out the reason why the problem occurred. So I'll just stop here. So yeah, we can.
Yeah. Anyway, we can check it later. There is no problem. We need time to do it. So anyway, okay, let's continue. The idea for those who just joined right now, the idea today is to focus on one final tutorials related to rendering and representation. So as we don't want to spend too much time today, what we are offering you guys is focusing today on tutorials and tomorrow just on the updates that you could have. Unless you want to share something at the end of the session, that's cool. But let's try not to spend 5 hours. I know it's too much for you and for us, so it's not fair for you. Okay, so if that's okay, I will continue just to show you a quick procedure to do renderings in Maya, and Aman will show you I think a little bit of end particles today and how to import your geometries into Unreal. Is that okay? For those who want to render in Maya, that's okay. So I thought that maybe that could be a good solution to use Arnold, because Arnold is a pretty good render engine of Maya. So what I will show you right now is first of all how to set a particular to set your file before start rendering in Arnold. Arnold is not that hard to do. It's way lot faster than V-Ray, that's for sure, but it's not that fast as Redshift, for example. But it's a pretty powerful render engine. The reason why I decided to use here inside Maya and not in Houdini, I also have it in Houdini, is because for me it's more easier to understand here in Maya. Okay, so some things that I think you should consider. I will show you basically the way to render with Arnold engine using the GPU. That's why it was a requirement for this particular workshop. We are going to work a lot with GPU. So if you don't have a powerful GPU, does it mean that you won't be able to render? Of course you will. You can do it. However, probably it will take a lot of time, a lot of unnecessary time to render a very basic image. So I will go directly into GPU. Okay. However, first of all, here in Maya, by default, you will have this particular tab that is called Arnold. Don't mess or don't get mistaken why this particular node, which is called rendering, is the one that comes by default in Maya. Before this particular tab it's been here since the beginnings. So when Autodesk bought Arnold, this second tab appeared. Okay, so you will see that probably here we will have lighting components, and here of course we will have them again. However, we need to agree on something. From this particular point, we are going to work exclusively with Arnold lights because we are going to render with Arnold. Okay, so what we are going to use basically are the first one, which is called the area light, and this fourth one that is called the skydome. The skydome basically, it's the let me do something quickly. The skydome, it's basically an HDRI. Okay, in this particular case, you're seeing an HDRI that I placed previously, but I will erase it. Okay, I will hide this, and start more or less again. I will hide them. I will hide the cameras. This particular model, the model that you're seeing right now, is the one that I exported previously from yesterday. So yesterday I showed you how to create several skins, how to extract several skins from whatever model you have. In my case, I had this one, this particular one. I exported independently and fused them all together here. Okay. So first things first. When you import something here, or when you create a particular model here in Maya, by default, let's see down. I want to make some notes. I really love making notes here. By default, you will see that the material that is applied is called Lambert. This is the default material in everything. Okay, you can change color, whatever you want here. However, we are not going to use the Lambert anymore. So the first thing we need to do is to change the logic to create a new shader. So the correct way to do it is by right-clicking here, as sustain, right-click here, and go into new assign new material. Click. Once you click on it, you will see this particular window. On this particular window, we will see tons of options related to shading, to the shading part. Okay, even for example, if you have installed V-Ray for Maya, you will see here another tab that will contain all the shaders of V-Ray. In my particular case, I will work exclusively with Arnold. Okay, so here you will see several ways to create, several options for shading. Okay, the most common way to work in Arnold is by using the standard surface. So I will click on it, and suddenly all my attributes will change automatically. What I'm seeing here at the right are basically all the parameters that works or that comes in this particular shader. We can work directly into the attribute editor, or what we can do is we can work directly into the hypershade. If you click on this particular sphere up here, you will see this particular window will come up. This particular window and this particular tab at the right is the same. Okay, what we are seeing here is absolutely the same. So even if I move this one into here, you will see that all the parameters that I have on this particular chart or window is the same as this one. Okay. However, what I have in the hypershade window is apart from the attribute editor I have here, I have the option to manage a network. So that means this particular material is called standard surface 5. That's cool. So the first thing you need to do is change the name, or put a name, assign a name, material metallic. I don't know. Okay, that's the first thing you need to do. Why? Because that's the best way to organize your set of shaders. In this particular case, this is my new material metallic. The way how I open the network is by right-clicking on it and go into graph network. Simple as that. For now, for those who comes, for example, from Blender, probably you will understand this better. We're going to work. We will create our first material using the graph editor. Okay. Nice. So the way how to add nodes is by clicking tab here. However, we are not going to work yet with nodes. We are going to work directly in with the attribute editor. I am just showing you that you have the possibility to work procedurally here. So if you want to preview what's happening here with your material, I suggest you to change this particular option that is called hardware into Arnold. Why? Because by default, Maya runs its own render engine. Okay, now it's ready. So that means that now what I'm seeing here is the exact thing I'm going to see at the end when I render my particular model. So to go very quickly on it, base means base color. So here you can change the color. If you want to, for example, if you want to add a texture, that's something that probably you want to do later. We have two ways of doing it. We need to apply a texture into this color. How? By going into this particular checkbox. When you click on this particular checkbox, on this particular box, what we are telling to Arnold is to add a new node. With this particular node, with this particular box, what we are telling Arnold is, please add a file node where I can store a texture. So once I click on it, immediately a new node will appear here. Okay, that's one way of applying a new component here. If you, for example, click on it, this window will appear, and here you can find whatever component you want. By default, by the way, in this particular case, we are able to use some Maya default nodes, of course, but I will go to Arnold. In this particular case, what I want to add is an AI image. Here you can add a texture. Here you look for it. I don't know where I place my textures, but let's look for something very quickly. Probably, let me look very quickly. I have an abstract texture. Let me look for it. Nice. For example, I have this one. If I want to add this particular texture, I put load, and that's enough. It should load. No, didn't load. Let's do it again. Okay, for some reason it's not loading. Okay, okay, it loaded. It loaded. But however, we have another option to import an image here. It's by going into your computer, grab and place it in the board. I think this is another good way to do it, because as soon as you import directly from your explorer into this canvas, this second node will appear. That is the UV projection, node. You can use it as well. And now, as you have the UV projection, now you can see how the texture is behaving right now. Okay, that's for those who wants to import texture. That's the way to do it. Okay. For example, in the case of this particular video, let me show you the video. In the case of this particular video, in where we used to have static mesh plus dynamic texture, the way to approach this is by animating, in this particular case, animating the UV projection, rotating the frame. Because when you rotate the frame, the texture will rotate. In this particular case, I'm not seeing it's rotating, but believe me, it will rotate. Okay, it will rotate. So there is a way to link this particular, I think this is one, yeah. There is a way to link this particular value with the timeline. I will show it later, but this is the way how you should add texture if you want to. In this particular case, I won't work with texture yet, but with a material on itself. I will go to white color in this particular case. Of course, metalness is the amount of metal attributes of this particular node. There is a very peculiar attribute that I found by using this. Oh, come on. Let's put it like that. I don't mind. Okay. There is something very peculiar I found by playing with the metalness of the material. When you combine the metalness with a thin film, the more metalness, the more metal attribute you add into your general texture, will have you the possibility to play with the index of refraction of the metalness. For example, what I mean is, if you increase the amount of metalness of a material, and then you increase the thickness, what you will get at the end is like a second skin with a different index of refraction. So that's pretty cool, because it gives you, for example, let's go like that I don't know if you can perceive it, but let's see if I can go. Okay, I don't know if you can perceive it, but in this particular case, the way how light is reflecting the metalness change its color. Now it's more like purple. Now it's more like green. This is pretty fine because this is more how metals works in the real life, rather than being a you know, an homogeneous texture. The way how metal reflects light is different depending of the light source. Okay, so if you decide to go with metal materials, by increasing this value, keep in mind that you can play with this second option that is called thin film. It will add a second layer, and in where you can change the refraction value. Yes, in any case. Okay. Then apart from it, of course, let's reduce it. Let's reduce this value. Let's put it in 0.5. Of course, you can play also with the specular, which is another map. Here, I really suggest you to play with the roughness. The roughness, again, the roughness manage how light reflects on a surface. You know, in this particular case, light is reflecting like 100%. That's why it looks like a mirror. Okay, but you can reduce that amount by increasing the roughness. I know that this is obvious, but I'm just being very technical to explain everything. In case you're working with transparent materials, you can change the index of refraction of that particular transparent material. When you play with metal, like in this particular case, you also can play with the anisotropy. In this particular case, I don't see too much difference. Yes, more or less at the end. It's more or less how the light is expressed through all the metal. For example, let's imagine that you don't have a clean metal, but it's like a dirty metal. Okay, the light reflects differently in an all metal. So you can play with anisotropy with this particular metal material. Okay, and if you play with anisotropy, you can change the rotation of that by using the rotation option. This will give you a more natural metal texture, if you want to create yours by default, of course. I will like quite a bit high, more or less like that. Nice looking, pretty fine. This is a really good metal, you know. This is not a standard metal material. Then if you want to play with transparent materials, then it comes the transmission and the subsurface. I will focus very quickly into the transmission material. Transmission material lets you control the transparency of the material. So if you want to play with glass, for example, the best way to approach it is by reducing the base color, because in this particular case, we don't need the glass to have a material on itself, maybe a color, but not a material. Oh, even though this looks nice, it's looking nice. Anyway, if I reduce the amount of weightness of the color, what you may want to do is to reduce the amount of thin film. Okay, then I will place the color in black. Once you place this color in black, you can increase the transmission amounts. This will give you a transparency attribute. I don't know why it's looking metallic. Okay, I reduce the metallic. The transmission option will give us a transparent material. Okay, that's the way you control it. Probably I need to reduce also those two values, anisotropy and rotation. That's better. That's better. Cool. More or less, the value of the refraction of the glass is more or less 1.52. That's more or less the general amount of the glass. So even though by using a transparent material, you can also decide how light reflects or refracts inside the same material, inside the material. Okay. The way how you control light, the bouncing light inside the material, that's where the subsurface comes. Okay. I will decrease this one. Okay. Of course, here you can change the color of the glass if you want by using this particular node. Okay. Of course, I will state in white to explain the next one. The subsurface is a particular method of light bouncing inside a transparent material. It's like the light bouncing inside the depth of a very particular material. You know, it's, for example, how light bounce in a human skin, for example, depending on their depth. more or less like that. So the way how you should use subsurface is by decreasing a little bit the transparency weight. Now you can use the subsurface. Now, of course, the subsurface depends a lot of the light, the light source. Okay, so by now we are just using a very standard HDRI, so probably we won't be able to see too much the difference. Even now it looks less transparent is because of the subsurface. Cool things though, here in the subsurface color option, we have like 3 lines next to it. That means that we have presets. Okay, if you click on it, you will find some presets. If you want to go with skin, just select that one, and we will have more or less the subsurface values of the skin, human skin. Okay, if you want to go an apple, let's go to an apple. I just suggest you to use that particular option to work faster. Okay, we don't need to know all the technical aspects of this particular attributes. If you want to increase, like the quality of this particular process, because of course, to create by adding this attribute into your texture, it will take more time to render. Okay, but if you feel fine with your GPU, I mean, if your GPU works fast and so on, what you can do is you can change the algorithm type. Okay, by default, you are using this particular algorithm that is called random walk. That's the name of the algorithm. But next to it, there's another one, which is called random walk version 2. What this does is basically it improves the algorithm. It will take more time to calculate, but the result will be better. Will be better. Okay. But be mindful, by changing this particular algorithm, you will get better results. However, your render will take more time to render. Okay, to render. I will stick into the random walk. Simple as that. This particular option, which is called radius, lets you control how much of this particular algorithm is working on the subsurface level. Okay, of course, the more radius you add, is like you will increase the way how the algorithm works. It will take more time. Okay, but it will look like more realistic at the end. So be mindful about the radius. Then I think there are what else? I won't cover coaching. Okay, animation is what it says is the emissive attribute of this particular shader. Okay, you can control it with it. You can also apply textures into it, by the way. You can do it. The same procedure I used for creating a texture, you can apply into the emissive part. Okay, that's the way how you control the general shader. If you want to add, for example, normals, a normal map, here, as you may see in Arnold, we don't have a normal input. Okay, however, we can add normals map, but the way how we add them is here in the geometry attribute, by placing the texture here in the BAM mapping. So just in case you want to add normal maps, doing by using the geometry node here, adding a file here, you go into Arnold and AI image, and here you will add the normal texture. Once you want to add a normal texture here, this second node will appear automatically. You just need to be sure that this second node is here, the BAM 2D. Okay, this is the only way you will see this particular node, by using the geometry input. Okay, I will erase it. Finally, what if I want to add a displacement? What if I want to add a displacement map? Here also we don't have it. However, as you may see here, we have the shader, but after the shader we have this other node. This is more or less the type of shade. This particular node helps us to manage the type of shader we're working with. Okay, in this particular node, what it's saying is that we have one geometry that actually is working with a surface shader. Which geometry? In our case, is the box. It's this one. This is the one. However, here we have three different shaders, or three different inputs: surface shader, volume shader, and displacement shader. Surface shader is what we are doing right now. Volume shader, it's, for example, when you want to render smoke or fog or clouds. In this particular case, a standard shader won't work. You need to work with a different shader, which is called volume shader. And in our particular case, if we want to add a displacement, we need to do it here by placing here a texture, the texture you want to use for displacement. Okay, that's the way how you do it. Okay, so let's imagine that we create this particular material. It's looking fine. I really like it. I will close this one, and I will save my file, by the way. When using Hypershade, be mindful about your computers. This probably will crash. Is it possible to ask Fresnel? That's a pretty good question. I know Arnold don't have that particular option, but let me see if we have it. I don't think we have it. All the nodes that are used from Arnold start with AI, but I don't think we have Fresnel, to be honest. Yes, I don't have Fresnel. Let me see if we have Fresnel by default. We don't have it. Yeah, I suppose that. I think we don't. But however, let's imagine that we want to use Fresnel. Fresnel, I think the correct pronounce is Fresnel. But let's imagine we want to use Fresnel. I think in that particular way, but because I know Arnold don't have that particular component, I would do it in Unreal, because I think the Fresnel option in Unreal works way lot better, I think, than in Arnold. So probably maybe Aman will cover that part. But that's a good question. Let me see anyway if there is an alternative for Fresnel here in Arnold, as we don't have the component. Okay.
Sorry, may I ask one more question then?
Sure.
I thought you said in Unreal it works better, yeah? Unreal Engine. Yeah,
yes.
Okay. And the other question is that, is the Arnold interface here in Maya so much different than the one is in 3ds Max?
I have never used it in 3ds Max, but okay. at least I guess this particular network should look the same. However, keep in mind that the hypershade is a very particular not component, but it's a very particular space here in Maya. So the hypershade you only be able to see here in Maya. Now, as I have never used 3ds Max, I'm not sure if in 3ds Max you have hypershade. As they are as those softwares are from Autodesk, I think there should be, but not sure to be honest.
I suppose not. Yeah, I'm not sure either. Okay, thank you.
If not, no worries. If not, at least this procedure that you're seeing at here must be the same. Because this is the way how Arnold works. Okay. If not, what we can do, that's something I do a lot. It's we can go to documentation Arnold. Let's go to Arnold, render docs. Yes. Let's see. Let's go here. Here in the documentation board, what you can do is you can go to 3ds Max to see how the user interface work. Let's just getting a start. Let's see Arnold installation. I will share to you this particular link. I will put it into Discord as well. But here, almost all the things that I learned from Arnold are from here. Here in the official documentation, you will find tons of resources, not only tutorials but files, materials, this kind of tricky things. Probably, if we look for now, maybe we will find a solution. Hopefully, just pictures. Okay, let me look for it, but there must be a way to solve that particular.
There is one additional add-on for 3ds Max. It's not default by any means for Arnold or Corona or V-Ray. There's no Fresnel option, and without the Fresnel, I really have a hard time getting the metal look good. So that's why I'm asking.
I know what you mean. That's why Aman and me usually use different render engines. So for the Fresnel option, we found a solution in
Unreal.
In Unreal, because it comes by default. And apart from it, even though the graph editor in Unreal, I think it's quite a bit. It's more difficult to use it, but I think you can get better results there and faster
Would
results
you
there.
suggest, for example, creating the base material in Substance and carrying it directly to Unreal, or just create the material from scratch in Unreal with the texture maps?
I don't know
well,
if you know the answer, Aman.
Well, it's pretty simple to create from scratch itself, because I create all my materials in Unreal from scratch. So I don't really know how to answer this, but yeah, I think from scratch is the best option if you're really getting into Unreal. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
In any way, be sure that I think you can link Substance with Unreal. I think you can link it.
Yeah. I was about to say that
there's
like,
a plugin. There is a plugin to link Substance with Unreal.
I mean,
Look at it.
So
I think
on 3ds Max also, but it is like decreasing the quality so
okay.
much. So
Okay.
yeah,
That's
I
a
don't
shame.
know a good way around it.
Try by looking at Unreal. I think there are now the native plugins to connect Substance with Unreal. I think with Unreal 5, I think. Let's check it together later. But I think you can now link in real time. Cool. So this is more or less basic way to create material. Of course, you can create extremely high complex textures, okay? But as we don't have too much time, I just want you to be sure about the general attributes. So then when you start experimenting with it, we can solve particular issues together. Okay. In my case, I will focus more on Arno, and Aman will focus more in Unreal. Anyway, we both use the softwares, but I will focus more on Arno. Okay. So what I did here, you may see here I have all my skins. I didn't take too much time to create materials. The way how I approached this particular render is by using default materials on Arno. I didn't create any complex shader for this particular render. So what I will show you is what I did. Of course, as any render engine, let me grab this one. I will go Control-1 just to isolate it. Let's go to Hypershade and see what's going on here. This particular material, it's, let me see the name. It's frozen. Come on. Classic Autodesk. Okay, let's go back again. It crashed. I was waiting for that to happen, to be honest. At least once. But anyway, while it's loading again, what I did here basically is working with 4 materials. As you are seeing here, we have an emissive material, we have 2 gray metallic materials, and we have this material which is gold. Simple as that. However, if you may see here in the material, we have like a metal which have like different flavors. You know, we have a more purplish color here, then it goes to quite a bit blue, and then gray. We can approach this not only by using the material, of course, you know, the relationship with the metal as the thin film that I showed you later previously. Thin film. However, you can even to this particular procedure, you can add lights with color, not the HDRI on itself, but the area light. That's what I want to show you how to do it. Okay, so now let's go again into Maya, and I think it's humanoid. So what we will do very quickly, it's I will show you all the parameters I use for the material rather than creating it from scratch, and I will show you the parameters of the light basically. Okay, and how to set the render, how to set properly the render. Of course, if Maya wants to run, of course I can teach you. Come on. Okay, let's wait a little bit. This particular model, I can share to you this particular model for you to study what I did with the texture. Okay, so if I will share to you this model while the other one is loading, just for you to study basically what's going on the material. So if you want to see what's happening inside this material, click on it. You can go at the end of the tab, this is the name of the material. Then from this particular part, you will be able to see what's going on. If you are not familiar with this particular way of seeing a shader, click on the material, go to Hypershade, and that's enough. Here we just need to be sure the name of the material. This is called Gen Unit. So what I will do is I will close this tab and I will look for the material I want to work with. Gen Unit, right click, Graph Network, and that's the material. In this particular material, you will see that I have a normal texture. I will try to add this texture as well, so you can play with it. This is the way how, so that means that this particular material, let's go to Arnold. That means that in this particular material, I'm using a standard surface and just a normal map, simple as that. However, we have another one, which is this guy, which is called standard surface one. Let's go to it, right click, graph network, and this is the material. I'm just using a base texture. But the funny part about this texture is that here in the UV projection, I animated the rotate frame. That's why when I play the timeline, this kind of effect appeared. You know, what is it? Oh, here. That's why when I play, the timeline, this kind of effect happened. Okay, simple as that. I will share to you this particular file. Then let's go back. If it's possible, of course. Cool. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back into the Hypershade to see what's going on here. And let's do it very quickly. This particular skin one. Okay, this particular material is called standard surface one. Okay. Let's go to standard surface one. In this particular material, this is metal. So what I did here, this is a really basic metal material. Probably the reason why I create this metal and I did not use the presets, because we have tons of presets, by the way, it's because I want to play with those two final values, the rotation and the anisotropy value. So if you may see here, my metal gets this kind of effect. You know, it's not linear, but it has this kind of curvy effect on the metal. That's why I use these particular values for that. Then let's erase this one. That's the first one. Let's go to the next one. It should be standard surface 2, I think. Let's see. This is just an emissive light. Simple as that. The only difference, or the only peculiar thing, is that I add metalness on it, so it looks like it's more like a, it's more like a crystal entity who is emitting light, rather than a very basic material. It's just more like a transparent material who is emitting light. That's why I increase just the metalness, and I just increase the value of the emission. Simple as that. Then we have the third one, which I think is the goal. Yeah, in this particular case I used a preset. If you want to use a preset in Arnold, you just click on it, click on preset here. Once you create the shader, of course, click on preset and go wherever you want. In this particular case, I use the gold one. I put replace, and that was enough. If you want to change it, go, for example, to copper, replace, and that's enough. It will change the result. Okay. And for the final one, I think it's very similar to the first one, to the first material. The only difference is that I increase the metalness by a lot, like at maximum. That's the only difference. Okay. So at the end, we will have two metals together, but with different reflection or refraction attributes. Okay. And that's all, basically. That's what I did here. But those are all the materials that I use. Now it comes the next part, the composition part. Okay, so what I will do here, I will press F to focus. First of all, I really suggest you to go with an HDRI plus area lights. So area lights are more for doing some to do some details at the end, but an HDRI is more for the general illumination. Okay, so the way how you work with an HDRI, it's by going into Arnold, pressing into Skydome button. Okay, and by default, the Skydome will contain a white light. Okay, a really homogeneous white light. So right now I can start rendering, but I won't do it anymore. I won't do it yet, because I want to work with an HDRI. And that's pretty common, by the way. So the way how you do it is by clicking into the box next to the color. And here we need to look for a file, of course, because an HDRI at the end is a file. I will go into, or no, I can, in this particular case, I think we can work with the command file. Yes, file. And here you just look for an HDRI. I have mine here, but you can look for something in HDR. There is a web page that's for that HDRI Haven. I don't remember the name, but in any case, you should have one at least. If not, I can share mine. I don't mind. I have one. Let's look for it pretty quickly. Yes, I have them here. I have particular HDRIs for metallic situations. So I will grab this first one. I will open it, and that's enough. Here you see the preview of the particular HDRI. Okay, simple as that. Then for now I'm ready to render. Of course, I'm ready to render. The way how you do it, and from this particular part, you need to be very careful. Okay. First of all, I will open the render display settings. And of course, first of all, the output size. I will go small for now. When you use CPU by default, in the Arnold render tab, you will have the possibility to change all those particular values from diffuse, specular, transmission, and whatever is here. Those particular attributes are related to how indirect light works, how transparent material works, how translucent material works, and how volumetric material works. The more you increase those values, will give you better, not less grainy renders, but better lining quality. This particular value here, which is called AA, that comes from anti-aliasing, is the one that controls how grainy or how noisy your picture is. This one control the lightning quality at the end. Of course, it helps a lot, but those particular inputs here are those who controls very specific attributes for lighting. Those for metallics, this for in indirect light, and those for transparent. However, once you change to GPU, you won't be able to modify them. Okay, we will just work with the anti-aliasing option, as the most important attribute here. So it will control everything. So be mindful about this particular inputs, because if you, for example, go from 1 to 2, the amount of rays that will be calculated will increase exponentially. So it don't increase the double, it increase 4 times. So be really mindful about it. By going from 4 to 5, it increased a lot the amount of rays. The way, at least from my, I have 3080 Ti, so that's pretty fine for me. I can go without any problem into 50 if I want, without any problem. But I think 30 samples is enough, okay, to get a pretty good result. Then I won't cover anything else, but probably the environment. This is really cool also. For example, if you want to get, I have a picture that I place here. Let me show you. For example, if you want to get this kind of dramatic like fog around the volume, this kind of shadow of clouds and whatever, if you want to get this kind of effect on your particular render, of course you will need to turn you will need to turn on the atmosphere. But first of all, let me show you the first basic part. Once you set your GPU, once you more or less set the amount of samples here, you can also have the possibility to set maps. You can also render maps from here. Okay, so the same maps you know from other renders are here. You just need to select one. For example, I want to export also the diffuse map. Click on it, click on this particular arrow. Now this particular map is active. It will be rendered. Nice. One final thing. If we have GPUs before start rendering, we need to go to Arnold, Utilities, and Pre-populate GPU. With that option set, we will be sure that our graphic card is ready to render. So if you render without doing this particular procedure, probably your render will take longer. it's very for sure it will take longer. With this particular process, we are getting sure that all our lighting, textures, base meshes, and whatever, it will be ready to be rendered. It shouldn't take more than 2 minutes, to be honest. But of course, it depends of your type of GPU you have. In my case, it takes less than a minute. Now I'm ready to render. If I want to set a camera, how can I set the camera? Let's go to view. Let's go to create camera from this view. Click. Now I have a new camera. Let's call this camera test. I don't know. To be sure that I will be working with this camera, let's go to panels, perspective, test. Now I'm sure that the camera that I'm orbiting right now is test. I can change the focal length. Let's go like 40, maybe 80 to look at more isometric. Probably like that. If you feel comfortable with it, you can lock this particular camera by locking the camera here. If not, first of all, save the file. I don't want it to crash. Let's go to Arnold, and you can open the render view. Good thing about the render view is that this works in real time. So while you are seeing the final output, you can still be rotating, moving things, moving the camera, and so on. Let's wait a bit until this works. Hopefully it won't crash. Come on, you can do it. Let's wait a couple of seconds. In any case, while it's loading, the idea is to get this particular output again. Of course, probably here you will see some blue lights here, some blue lights, and up here probably you will see some like a purple light or magenta. It's because I add 2 more area lights. I add a blue one and a kind of magenta one. That's why you get this kind of effect. Apart from the second layer, I add into the metalness. That's why it looked like that. Let's see now if it's rendering. Yes, it is. Nice. However, this is not my perspective. It should be test. Yes, now it's working fine. Now when I move, of course, my render will move with me. Right now, it's quite a bit slow because I'm live streaming, but you get the idea. Yeah, you get the idea. Nice, looking nice, looking nice. So let's imagine I want to turn I don't want to see the background. Here, as you may see, I see the HDRI map. I don't want to see it. So what I can do is I can select the sky dome. You can go to camera option here in visibility and put it 0. That's enough. And what I really suggest you, it's here you will find an option that is called samples. If you increase this number, for example, into 5, you won't see almost any difference. However, what you are doing by increasing the sample value is you're letting the computer to get better results with the light. So you will get at the end better quality lighting. Okay, better quality light. Then what else? Even though it's looking fine, it's looking really dramatic. What I did here is I added 2 area lights. Okay. I added a blue area light at the back and 1 magenta at the top. Okay. This is very simple to add just by going here into the area light. Where is it? Down here. I will move it. I will place someone below down here. I will rotate it, but the way let's move this. The way how I will rotate it, it's I will go like not T by E. While rotating, I will be pressing J on the computer just to lock the rotation, more or less like that. I will use, in this particular case, I will use disk form I always love to use the disk form for area lights. So when in any case you see a reflection of the light on a surface, that particular reflection will be smooth, not linear. Okay. I will finish this part, Arjun, so you can ask something. Then what else? You can increase the size of this source, but be mindful. The bigger the source, the more intensity you will need to add. Consider that. Of course, I will increase the samples just to get better quality. I will reduce my zoom. I will go to play. Let's do it like that. Of course, I am not able to see nothing because the intensity is too low. Probably I need to go like 20. Now I can see something. Maybe I can go a little bit red. It's looking nice. It's looking nice. But I think the shadow is too hard. Maybe I can reduce the spread. Or I can increase the size. No, return here. Okay. I can increase the size maybe. That's cool. That's cool. I will share to you the HDR. I don't have any problem. No worries. I will do it as soon as I finish this. And now you can have your own. That's the way. That's the way. Let me, oh my gosh, I lose it. Of course, I set previously some cameras. I have this one. I have the second one and so on. Of course, remember that we ask to render another input. You have here the diffuse. Okay, so you can add here as many maps as you want. Okay, finally, let's see Mayan. I want to do one final render. I want to focus on this particular part. I want to do a zoom in on this particular part, but I want to have all the rest and not focus. You know, I want to use bokeh. How can I do it? This is very tricky. So I think I will teach you. Because here in Maya, we have two methods to do it. So first of all, I need to create a camera. Of course, I need to create a camera. So let's go to view, new camera from view. This will be called focus. No, anyway, you got it. Let's go to panel. Let's activate focus. Nice. If I want to go with a teleobjective, I need to increase the focal length. Let's go to 110. I will change this name. And more or less, let's try to focus maybe like that. I don't know, maybe like that. Let's put it like, maybe like that. Cool. I will focus on this particular hand. Well, if this can be called hand anyway. But anyway, let's imagine I want to focus this particular part, and I want not to have the rest of the picture focused. The way how you do it, first of all, let's lock the camera. That's the most important thing because we don't need the camera to move. Then, next thing we need to do, let's go first of all to Arnold render view just to see if we have the composition ready. Let's select focus. Let's press play. And let's see if this particular camera will be working fine. Come on. This first, once you run again the Arnold render, it shouldn't take too much time to start to run the render. I suppose that just because I'm live streaming and I am at the same time sharing screen, that's why it's taking quite a bit more to run the render. But this don't usually happen. Almost ready. It's still preparing. In any moment, it should start. Okay. In the meantime, Arjun, I think you have a question. I think you can ask your question now. If you want to, of course.
Yes, I wanted to ask, like, I think Unreal Engine will be also covered in this workshop.
Yes, of course.
So my question is that, what is the benefit of using Arnold instead of Unreal Engine for rendering only?
Cool. This is a really good question. What I love about Arnold is that you can get results, very good results, with less invest of time, in the sense that for me, it's easier to understand the procedure of creating a material in Arnold rather than in Unreal Engine. In Unreal Engine, the process is quite a bit harder. So if you're really new into Unreal Engine, the first impression you will get is that it's harder to understand, because it is. But the good thing about Unreal Engine is that if you want to have real-time animations, if you want to have high quality textures, but in real time, moreover animated textures, I think it's better to go to Unreal Engine. But if you want to have, for example, static renders like this one, you can do it even faster here in Arnold, as you may see. But it depends of you. We just want to show you two different methods, because if most of you have its composition in Maya, I think it's better to render at the end in Maya, because you have all composed in Maya. If you have all your models in Maya and you want to export it into Unreal, you will need to work not only in the materials, but you will need to work in the environmental light, in the post-processing, in the atmosphere light, into the indirect light. So there are more things you will need to set before start rendering. So it will take more time. Is it something bad? Of course, it's not. It's not. You just need to make sure. You just need to know. The more tools you know, I think it will be better for you to choose the best, to take the best decision. Okay. But for static objects like this one with black background in this particular case, I would go to Arnold like this one. You will get renders really fast, really fast.
But Pedro, I think for this one you have right now, you don't have a UV map for the model, do you? Or a baked text?
In this particular case, I don't, because I don't need it.
Then
however,
it won't be possible to take it to Unreal, or?
Yes, you can do it. However, we can add, for example, if I am aware that I will apply a texture on it, I mean a regular square texture on it, of course I need to add a UV mapping here. And it's very simple to do it here, just by going into UV, and depending on the type of form we have, it's the projection we are going to use. In this particular case, as we are using organic forms, I think the best projection we need to use is spherical. So in this case, I will go to spherical, and I will create the spherical projection onto it. Once I do it, now I'm ready to export it into Unreal Engine with the UV set correctly. Here, I just need to increase this value to close the spherical projection, and we are ready to go. That's all you need to do. Now now the model has projections, UV projections, but in this particular render, it will look the same, because I am not using a regular square texture to be projected on it. I'm using a procedural way to create materials. That's why I don't need exactly the UV mapping in this particular case. However, in my other file, let's see. Okay, let's go to the board. It's not loading. However, and on this particular model, of course, it was a must to have UV mapping projection, because if I just apply the texture on it, it will look completely flat. I would look just one color. Of course, in this particular case, first I project the UV mapping and then I apply the texture. Now this particular model is ready to be exported to Unreal Engine in case I want to do it.
Could you please show the UV map you just generated? I'm just curious.
Yeah, sure. If Maya lets me go there, here. Okay. Here what I did. Okay. Here I can show you where it is. But here what I did is just go to UV mapping and do this spherical one. It's enough. That's enough. That's enough. And when you insert your texture, when you set in, that's enough. It should be like that, 360. But believe me, it's there. It's there. Once you project your UV mapping, Now it's ready. In the hypershade, once you insert your texture, you need to be sure that you have this second input here. That's the one who controls how the texture is projected. Simple as that. That's how I could control the rotation of that particular texture here. But that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. So here I can start rendering, but I have my other file open. I will share to you this particular file anyway, just so you can watch it. Okay. But yeah, believe me, I have my spherical UV projection ready, and my file also has its own UV projection component to move it. Of course, if I use this particular command here, and I don't have a UV projection onto my mesh, this won't work. It doesn't matter what I do; it won't work because I don't have any UV projection on my on my mesh. Okay, but now that I have it, this will work really fine. That's how you can rotate the texture on this particular example. Okay, hopefully this can help. Hopefully this can help. In any case, if you have more questions, just let me know, please. Okay, now it's working. Okay, but anyway, I cannot see any difference from the previous example because in this particular case, I'm working with procedural shading. So I am not using any static texture to be applied onto it. If I, for example, want to use a normal map to add, for example, imperfections here, and my normal map is a JPEG texture, of course, I need to add a UV projection here before you start playing with the normal map. But in this particular case, I am not using those kind of maps. That's why I don't bother to use UV projection. Now that I have my composition ready, I will start playing with the focus thing. Okay, first of all, there's something very important to keep in mind. If I want to focus on this point, I need to know the distance between this point and my camera. So the way to know it is by adding this particular option here into Maya. How did I do it? We need to go to, I will try to do it to go faster. We need to go to display, I think. Heads up display, and I think this is called object details, if I am not wrong. Yes, it is. Let's go to heads up and we go to object details. Because here we have the most important value, the distance from camera. So if I want to focus here, what I will do is I will create a very small object here that will tell me the exact distance from this object to my camera. And that's the amount I will apply to my camera to start playing with the focus thing. So what I usually do is I will grab a cube. I will grab this particular option, snap to points, just to model at the top of this zone. Come on. Come on. It's there. It's almost there. Come on, come on. I will do it again, but I will do it with the sphere, I think. Just let's wait a little bit. Okay, that's enough. Okay, that will be my focus point. Okay, if you want to move it, you can do it. As soon as you have this snap to points option on, you can move your sphere, at the top of the surface without any problem. That's nice. This will be my focus point. Once I have this particular model here, now I know the value, which is 11.17. So that means that now I can go to the camera, which is called focus, and be mindful, because here, let me see what it is. Let's not use this one. Here, you have this option that is called depth of field. Don't be mistaken. This is not the option we want to use. The one we want to use is down here into the Arnold, because we are going to render with Arnold. Down here, we have the depth of field option. We enable it. Let's make sure about the distance, 1117. I will put it here, 1117. I will hide this sphere, of course. And now it's time to enjoy. Let's go to the camera. And now I can increase the aperture size until a point where I like my focus. Okay, of course, be mindful. This particular option in Arnold makes a render process longer. Okay, so be mindful. But now it's working fine. Okay, simple as that. That's the way how you. That's the correct way to add focus on Arnold, I think. Okay. What else? I think for now, it's enough. You can play with it if you want. I will share this file and the other one. I will put it onto the drive so you can see what's going on inside it. So you can ask me questions later. Okay. I think unless someone has a very quick question, we can answer it. If not, Aman can continue. Is it okay, everyone? If not, we can continue. Or not, or if you prefer, you can also write into the chat so I can answer through the chat also. Okay. So so I think that's all for me for now. Aman, if you want, you can continue now.
Yeah, sure. Mine. Right. So no one has any questions here before we go to end particles and Unreal Engine. Okay.
I asked just a small question earlier about Unreal Engine, about which version are we going to use, whether it's 5.4.4 and whether it's 5.5 is okay or not.
I've got 5. I'm not sure what the others have got, but I think 5 is the most updated one, so we'll be going with 5. Because if you go with 4, there's a bit of a difference between Niagara and Lumen, so you won't be having those two features. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So yeah, no worries. But I think for today, it's just going to be an introduction. We're not going to go in depth. I think we'll go more in depth tomorrow with the blueprints and materials. Okay, so let me just share my screen.
Also, just a small question to Pedro about using Arnold for animation. I was wondering, like, what's the time of that render that he created with the animated material?
Pedro, are you here?
Yeah, so, sorry, it was a question for me?
Yeah, I was asking about the animated material render you did, whether you did it on Arnold or not, and how long did it take?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it took like 2-3 hours for 10 seconds. No, I think it was less than 10 seconds. It was 9 seconds. It took like 2-3 hours, more or less.
And that was GPU, right? Yeah.
Yes, and even though 3 hours is a lot compared to Unreal Engine, you can get faster results in Unreal Engine. You can get it. But yeah, it all depends of your GPU. In my particular case, I'm using a 3080 Ti. That's why for me it's really fast for me.
Good luck to my 2060 also. It's not gonna live.
If not, probably you will. Probably in your case, with a 2060, it's better for you to get to go to Unreal, probably. But try anyway. Try. You need to try.
No, because I think I have a 2070 at the moment. I also did an animated texture displacement animation, and it took me around 5 hours. In like, I think it was 4K, I think. So yeah, it took me like around 5 to 6 hours. Yeah.
It's nice.
I just left it a whole night and had a good sleep.
Before I start using this particular GPU, I used to have a 1660 Ti, and a render used to take me the whole day. So the difference is like a lot.
Unreal Engine it is.
All right. Okay. So I think I can share my screen. Okay. So first, what we're gonna do is we're gonna, just dive into the world of N particles and how N particles work. In my case, I use N particles to create structures and not, I don't use it for any sort of effects. Though I think you can use it for effects. Let me just share my screen. The things that we will be doing today. Okay, so yeah, so if you can see my screen. So this structure, entire structure, I made with the N particles and with the same method as we discussed, in these 2 days with cluster points and stuff. I was able to subdivide geometries and extract different geometries. And then we'll be taking this geometry to Unreal Engine, where you can see over here, we have this nice floating little thing, which I created really quick. So you can, just walk around and see your entire thing on the top. Is, looks pretty badass. Not sure if I'm allowed to say that. Okay, so yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. Anyone's got any questions? Okay, so let's go to Maya. Same, we got the screen, we got the interface ready. Just to start working with N particles, we need to change the modeling to FX. And over here, you'll immediately see your options keep changing. So you got N particles here, you got fluids, you got N cloth, and hair and stuff. So we'll be focusing more on the N particles now. Right. So what all things does the N particles have? So this, if you have the latest version, which is 2022, you may, so you'll be having this emitter, like this emitter section. And if you have legacy particles, this was basically the N particles in the previous Maya versions, like 2018. So we don't use that anymore. We use the ones on the top. Okay, so let's first create emitters. So we click this box over here, you get a pop-up. You can enter your emitter name. So I would just say emitters with a capital E. Right, so here you have a couple of options. Well, everything at the bottom you can leave as it is. You just focus on the top over here. Emitter type we set to Omni because we just want to create the particles from a single point at the moment. So if you want to create something from a surface, you change it to, sorry, I think that's a different option, I think. So if you go to, yeah, so you can emit from object if you want to create emitters from a surface or any geometry that you have. But for the moment, we'll be creating it all from a single point. So we use Omni. And as your animation goes, so the rate depends on how many particles it's going to generate as the animation plays. So at the moment, it's like 150 particles per second. Yeah, the rate. So you can leave it as it is and just type and just click on create. And you get this. If you see in the outliner, you get 3 different options. You have the emitter, you have the N particle, and you have the nucleus. So the emitter over here, the emitter 2, is the point from where your emission or your entire simulation is going to start. So you can click on this and click W to get the gumball, and you can move it up. So I want my stuff to start from here. And now if you go to your timeline at the bottom and click play, you can see, stuff happening. You see that everything, drops down. Because at the moment, by default, the gravity is on. And by gravity, I mean, if you go to the nucleus, and if you go to the properties panel over here, you can see that the gravity is on 9.8, and the gravity direction is -1, means it's going account. If you want, you can change this. At the moment, I think we can leave it as it is, I think. And what's important over here is, as you can see, we have the grid or the ground plane. So at the moment, the ground plane is not being taken into consideration when the simulation runs. For now, we can check it on, and now immediately. So every time you change something, you need to always click this to go all the way back, and then you play it again. So you have to keep doing that every time you add some stuff to your particle system. So now that I've played it, you can see that all my particles are dropping on the ground, and it's being affected by that ground plane. Right. So that's simple stuff. And if you go back to the emitter, and how we were mentioning about the rate, you can see the rate in the most first tab over here using emitter 2. You'll be seeing. So if you change it to, like, say 500 and go back and play again, you see there's a bit more particles that exist every frame. So you can again change that to maybe 2000. Maybe I'm going a bit over my limit, but okay. So for now, we just leave it to, like, say 200 or something. That's fine. Right. Right. So that's done. Next, we explored the most important properties in emitters. That is the second one, which is the N particle shape 1. And you'll be seeing a whole bunch of stuff going on over here. You have the count, you have the lifespan, the particle size. So by default, your particles are points, and you can leave it as points, but we don't want to leave it as points. We want to actually create something from it. So we can go to shading, and the particle render type is points. We can, go to the dropdown, and you see we'll have a bunch of stuff like we got sprites, we got multi-streak, but what we'll be using is spheres, so that we are able to see it more properly and the things that's happening. So, right, so we have spheres, and you can see the sphere size. Well, depending on how our effect turns out at the end, we can change the size. So by changing the size, you can go to the third most property, which is the particle size, and by default it will be 0.2, I think, in all cases. So you can either change it, you can either scale it down, but don't scale it too high, because it's just going to then not look good. So maybe 0.15 is good. Another issue is that all the spheres are the same size, and I don't really like that. It just looks very not good. So you can come to, if under the particle size itself, there's a radius scale. So at the moment, the radius scale input is off, but you can change that to randomized ID. So it's going to take the ID of every point and just randomize a scale. So the reason why it's not working right now is because of this, the ramp over here, everything is constant. So if you click, say, just make some shape, whatever you like, it's going to give you a more difference between the sizes. So now if I play, I can see now it's acting a much more better. Okay, right. One more issue that I have is of the overlaps. I don't want them to overlap with each sphere. So you can go to collisions, and it's, so by default collide is set. So if you have an object or any geometry, it's going to collide with that geometry. But at the moment, we don't have a geometry except the ground plane, which is switched on. So it's colliding with that. But if I want the particles to collide itself, I can just switch on self collide and go back all the way to my animation and click again. So now you see it's acting more realistic with like, proper physics. Right, so that's good. So that's there. We got some balls dropping from a certain point, not so interesting. And yeah, and if you want, you can like, just mess around with these settings. Like, some of them are pretty cool, like the bounce. It creates the bounce effect. If you like it, then you can go with it. But yeah, I'm just showing you different stuff that you can do. All right, so that's that. But now, after I've explained pretty much everything else is like, trial and error. I myself haven't gone through all of them. I just use the things which I like. So these are pretty much the things which I like from all this. Liquid simulations, if you enable it, I don't think it's going to work well. It just gives, different results. Everything that you change is going to give you different results, but at the moment, I don't really want to use that. What else can I do at the moment? Okay, so let's go back to the nucleus. Let's deselect the gravity. So I'm going to put it to 0. So now it has no gravity, so it's just going to be there itself. It's going to be, floating in the air. So what I want to add to this is like some sort of a force or an effect. So you click on the end particle, and this is basically going to, give you the outline of your entire system that's happening. You have this selected. You go up to field solvers, and here in the create panel, you'll see a bunch of different stuff like the effects that you can use. My personal favorites are the turbulence and the vortex. I like turbulence because it's really cool. You'll see why. So as you turn the turbulence on, so you'll get a thing in the outliner called turbulence field. You click on it, and over here in the properties, you'll have the magnitude in attenuation, frequency, and stuff. So let's crank up the magnitude, say by 15. And yeah, you can see there's a lot of different stuff that's happening. And now, with this going on, if I want to add say a collision geometry in the middle, say I want to add a cube over here. So let's create a cube, and let's scale it with R and move it with W, and just place it over here. And to activate this as a collider for our effects system, we click on the cube, we go up to nCloth and create passive collider. And now you'll be able to see, then you have this collision and stuff going on over here, which is what we want. If you want now, you can keep this in the viewport, or you could click H to hide it. So H is a shortcut to hide stuff in the outliner. And if you want to bring it back, you just click on this, right? H again. So H. Okay, let's see how it looks like when it's colliding. So let's again turn it up and see how it goes. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so at the moment I have my frames to 120. I want to change them, crank it up to 300 or something. So you can change it from here. By default, it's going to be 120. So I just changed that value to 300. So I can see more of the simulation all the way up to 300. So now you see that this simulation acts on both the cube as a collider, as well as it bounces off the ground plane, and it's creating something very, very cool. And in case you want to increase the particle size, you can again go to the emitter over here, go to particle size, and just increase it. And it's just gonna create more 10 stuff if you want. So that's one. Okay, that's pretty much the basics of it. Anything else you want to do, you can go to again field and type the vortex, so you can add more than one field effect. So at the moment I've added a vortex, and by default the magnitude is 5. So let's say 20, and let's see how it behaves. It should, go in the form of vortex, which it is going. And you can already see that, you're getting the outline of it. And to increase the density, you can again go to the emitter over here and change the rate from 200 to say 2000. God bless my laptop. Yes, yeah, I need him to bless it. I'm going way overboard. I mean, if you guys got a good laptop, then it should work fine. I've seen a lot of people working fine. But I think what we gotta do is wait for this orange line to fill up, because it's basically caching your simulation, and after it's done, maybe then you can play it. So I just need to wait for it to end so I can see how it looks. Just a little bit more on. Right, okay, let's play it again. I should be able to play it now without any lags. Okay, so that's pretty much, okay, that's something. I mean, I don't know, like maybe it could be like some space to go inside. Well, let's see. Okay, let's try to mesh this entire thing, because at the moment, this entire thing is a simulation. Yeah, can you make particle meshes? Then they and here right now. Yeah, okay, I'm going to be showing you how to mesh them. So if you're done with all your particle effects, the turbulences, and if you're satisfied with a certain simulation, then you can just go to, I think, N particle. You click on N particle, and again, it's going to bring up the bounding box. And then you go here on top to modify. You go to convert, and basically here are all the options to convert from something to the other. Like, if you want to smooth something, you can do it from here, like from this update to polygons, or the volumes to something, fluids to something. But in this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using N particles to polygons. And yeah, so here is one big issue that happens. After you click that, you can see that there is a mesh being created, but the resolution might be really small. So what you gotta do is you gotta go back to this panel, which has all the count, lifespan, particle size. You go to output mesh, and over here is where you change your settings to, see your mesh that's being formed. The threshold, you can probably go up to 0. You don't really need it. I mean, I've tried to do it. You don't really need it. And the blobby scale, yeah, you just need to play around with these settings. If not, then maybe your emitter size is really small, the particle size. So you need to crank that up. And yeah, and you can see it's crashing at the moment. So my frame at the moment is at 216. So I gotta wait all the way. But yeah, I don't think I want to do that because it may take long. So what we could do is, I mean, if you want, you can wait, but I'm not gonna wait because yeah. Okay, so yeah, so you can see that there are meshes now being formed, and it's a bit laggy because there are a lot of meshes. I think I really overdid my emitters over here. It's a lot for my computer. Okay, so this needs to cache, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, it's not going to show up. And yeah, let's see how it looks like here. but yeah, you should be able to get the idea. Yeah, I'll go back and let it cache for some time. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer any. Yeah, happy to any questions. So means I've too much explained properly. Right, so what does this look like? Yeah, if you see stuff breaking, it's probably because why am I seeing this? Yeah, it's probably because in your end particles, the second one, you gotta mess around with your output meshes. So at the moment, maybe too much. Yeah, it's okay. We are probably getting something. Okay. Let me try 0.2. Yeah, going a bit overboard. Yeah, that's one really annoying thing about simulations in Maya. You gotta like wait if it gets really, really heavy. I mean, that's why we have Houdini if people don't want to use Maya, but it's a good thing to know. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's break the vortex. I don't think that's working. I don't think I like it. Okay, let me try to do this again because I broke the entire thing. Yeah, okay, let me just quickly do it now. Limiter, go to 150. Yeah, sure. 150 frames to emitter up. Go to end particles, create a turbulence, go 200. Drop things. Right, okay, I think this is fine. You can create something with just this. Right, so we can go to the emitter, sorry, the end particles, go to output mesh, shading, spheres. Okay, there's where my sphere's gone.
Maybe they are too small in the particle size.
Yeah, probably it was that. Okay, so I want to create something like this, and at the moment the cube is not acting as an enclave, a passive collider, so I can turn that, and we can also enable which is going to be okay, so I will need this. Then we have the use brain option. Right, so I think this is what all I have done. And now it's a bit too less, so let's increase that. Maybe increase the size of this, just so that I get something very organic in a way. Okay, so this seems to be fine. go to particle size and randomize it, create some differentiation in it like that. Or maybe just one should be fine. Okay, something like this could work. Let's hide the cube and let's go to n particle again and go to modify, convert, n particles to polygons, and it's disappeared, which is fine. Right, so go to output mesh. So I don't use threshold, and you can see that after you change every setting, it's going to reset, so that's completely fine. Don't worry if it disappears. I don't want it to be really blobby, so we can keep decreasing this until we reach some, a good state. Mesh particle size, probably decrease it, so it's going to be a bit more clean, but okay, it's getting more right. So motion streak, I don't even know what that is. I've tried to use it, but it doesn't really change much, so I just ignore it. Mesh smoothing, if you don't like these jagged things, you can try to smooth it from here. So it's gonna again reload. Let's see. Right. So you can go all the way up to like maybe 10 or 15 or 20 until you reach a point where it looks good. But I think my computer is at a state where it's giving up, so I can't go more. So I think I can just leave it as it is. And yeah, I'm going to Control D to take it out. And if I don't like this, I can again emulate something else from here at a later stage, but let's work with this. All right, so what I'm mostly interested in this one is you could use all these things which are outside, but I don't really like to use that. So I can go to modeling. And since all of this is a single mesh, which is like attached into a single mesh, but we can clearly see that there are meshes which are floating. If you want to get rid of them, you can just go to the modeling tab. You can go to mesh, separate, and it's basically going to separate everything that's not connected. So say like we have the biggest piece in the middle, which is connected, and all these other pieces are not. So it's up to you if you want to use them, or you can just select everything, and here you can just say Control G to group everything. So at the moment, I think it's going to be over here, the group. Right. So the group is created over here inside your outliner. At the moment, I'm just going to hide them. And yeah, I mean, so I can work with this. There are a lot of things we can do with this. Well, our personal favorite is just trying to see how organic we can go with creating like the error. So yeah, so from now on we can go back to what we have learned in A1 and A2 and try and like create like very very complex simulated blobby shapes. Can you animate .ply files particle system large and actually put light .ply? I'm not really sure because I've never tried ply files. Pedro, have you ever tried .ply? I don't think he's here, but yeah, I think you can ask him when he's here. But I've never personally tried UI. Yeah, Achin, you can.
Okay. I might have missed some part because went outside and to the kitchen to have dinner, to take my dinner. My query is
Okay.
that the particle system also exists in Houdini. It's known to be very robust. What is the advantage of Maya's n particles over Houdini's particle system?
Well, to be very blunt, I don't. What's the clarifications? Okay, sorry. To be very blunt, I don't really like Maya's simulation, but it does have, it does have some options which could benefit you if you're only Maya user. But for Houdini, we need to learn pops and wops, which is like, a lot of people don't know about it. But if they don't know pops and wops, then yeah, I would definitely go for the other software, not this one. So this is just for people who want to do it in Maya. But if I were to personally choose, I would choose pops over all this.
Okay, so n particles is like easier to learn and grasp, right?
Yeah, n particles is very, very easy. As you can see, I've just used, like, I literally just went to the FX and just use the n particles, and it's just create an emitter to start off the entire system. And then I've added just a turbulence and stuff. So, I mean, it's really, really simple to do it over here. Not sure if that answers the question. I hope.
Yes, I understand now.
Okay, good.
Like I
Okay,
used,
so yeah.
Okay, continue. No. I won't interrupt now because.
No, ask. It's fine. It's fine. You can ask.
I was just commenting that I experimented with particle system, like making these blobs last year in summer when I was using Houdini. So the level
Yeah.
of the patience and the level of the hard work that your mind has to do is almost like the same. I mean, the complexity of the workflow is almost the same compared to what we have covered in workshop. So that's why I was just wondering about comparison between particles.
Yeah, I mean, the only cool thing about this, which I like, is it's not very easy to make. Like, I'm not sure if you can see properly, but it's like a very growth, like a differential growth thing, which if you want to do it in Houdini, it would probably, I know it requires at least 7 to 8 nodes to be able to do something like this, like, like these sort of blobby shapes. So in this way, if you're really going into like something very blobby texture or something, you can easily do something like this very, easily in this software.
Right. I think, yeah, what I did last year was very uncontrolled and very inorganic and very wild kind of growth. It was quite uncontrolled. This looks more controlled in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I got another question. Was the dinner? Okay, sorry. How did you merge the mirror geometry? Okay, so by default, if you mirror something, it will be merged. But again, it's just a habit for me. Like after I mirror something, I just go to the vertex mode, so I can see all the vertices. So I select all of them and shift right click. You can go here, merge vertex and merge vertices. So just to be sure that all the vertices are merged, I use this way. It's just something which I do like so many times, so my hand just goes there automatically. Okay, no worries. Right. Right. So after we create anything like any of these blobby texture shapes, I think we are ready to go to Unreal. Yeah, okay. So, well, if you just want to take this model to Unreal, I think you can do so, but like before taking it to Unreal, I went and subdivided the entire thing by cluster points and stuff. So again, I did the same thing where I got the model in which I made previously using the same technique, and then I applied a VDB to it, a VDB reshape, and I mean we have a lot debate about this, so you don't have to use this, but again, I just use it. So I'm sorry. So I just converted it and then I delta meshed it to create something very smooth, and it looks very, very alien-like. Then same method, used measure curvature and use the color attribute ramp, where if you go here, you can change the color type to ramp from attribute. And I changed the range from 0 to 0.05 to get more details in. And then the cluster points and stuff, which gave me a lot of different things. So then, yeah, I took each and everything out using the blast node. And just for this sake, you can either take this geometry back to Maya and you can do a spherical UV map like how Pedro showed. But since I didn't have a lot of time to do that, so I just used the auto UV on Houdini. So be mindful that if you're using a texture in Unreal Engine, like a concrete or something, it's good to take this to Maya, do a spherical UV wrap, and then you take it to Unreal Engine. Because this auto UV just makes UVs for the namesake. Like the maps are a mess. So if you're just using color in Unreal Engine, so this is a good way to just take it from here to Unreal Engine. But if you're using textures and stuff, it's good to take it to Maya and then do a spherical wrap and then take it to Unreal. So that's what I wanted to point. So in this case, for this model, I just use colors because I don't want to go in depth at the moment because we may run out of time if we go in depth. So as you can see, I just use a color over here. So I can explain that problem. I think we can just go after that right in. So yeah, I hope everyone knows how to export geometries. I'm not sure if we have covered that, but yeah, you just take a file node and you go here, you connect it to your last output, and instead of read files, so read files is when you're importing a file to Houdini. That's when you use the read files. If you want to export something out, just use write files. And then you can just save things where you want to save. So I just go save skin12.obj. So you need to mention .obj always or .fpx. Because I have the apprentice version and I don't have the ROB FPX exporter like the indie. So if you have apprentice, then I think this is the only way you can export files using the file node. So yeah, after you click that .obj, just hit accept and be sure to turn on this so that it actually exports the file to your file directory. And then you should be good to go. Yeah, Pedro, if you want to say how to export an FPX or an Alembic, I think you can speak now before we go to Unreal.
I just wanted to say that if some of you are interested in exporting animations, it is Alembic files. The only way to do it is by using the indie license of Houdini. So if someone of you want to export animations, I can help you. You just need to send me your files and I can export it in my computer. So Alembics can be used in Max and in Maya. Yes, you need to at least, I don't know how to do it in 3ds Max, but in Maya you need to import it by using the cache file, the cache option. You import a cache file, which is an Alembic. Yep. But I don't know if it's the same in Maya in 3ds Max. It should be. It should be.
Okay. Right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, if you can, guys, just get the indie version. If you want to go hardcore into the software, it's always good to get the indie version. Apprentice is good just to learn the software. I think I myself am going to get the indie version probably within a week. So, because I feel that the indie version is going to solve a lot of issues like exporting animations and stuff from Houdini. Because in Apprentice I can't even do that, so it's completely useless. So I need to import stuff to Maya to be able to do animations over there. Whereas I can do simple animations over here itself and export it out. So it's pain, right? Okay, so anyway, coming back to the point. You exported all your geometry that you want. We can go to Unreal Engine. I don't really want to show you this from now. Okay, now Epic Launcher. Sorry, don't open you. Open something else. So go back, go back, go back. Okay, so right. Okay, so when you start the Unreal Engine, you are firstly going to open the Unreal Editor, which opens up as you can see over here. So if your first time in Unreal Engine, I can quickly show you the stuff that's going on. So you'll be welcomed by this amazing screen. You have recent projects, so all your saved content that you worked previously is going to be here. So I don't think you may have anything if you're completely new to Unreal. So this is probably going to be empty for you, but you can see the recent from here. Then you have templates for games, for films and videos, for architecture, and automotive and product design. So depending on what field you want to go in, you have templates already set, such as for product design, you have a studio set. So all you have to do is, place your model in and you have the lights and stuff already set for you. So it's handy at some point, it's handy, but it's always good to like start from scratch and do everything. Right. So we are going to be going to the games tab and we will be starting from a blank or third person template, just to show you quick. But it's always good to start from blank because you get a clear screen and you can go everywhere. So we are going to use third person just to show you how the controls work. And from tomorrow we're going to be starting off in the blank as well, so I can show you how to create a whole scene from scratch. So tomorrow I'm not going to be teaching Houdini or Maya. I'm just going to be fully focused on this software. Right, so third person, you have, after you click this, you have these options which you have to deal with. You have Blueprint and C++. So these are the two main scripting languages which Unreal Engine has. So you either use the native blueprints which work, and blueprints work similar like how we have the node system in Grasshopper or Houdini. So I myself use blueprints, but even though I know C++, I don't use it because I've never tried it on the software. So if you guys know this, you can go for this. But just by default, you can go with blueprints. Project location. So where you want to save your project in. So this is something that up to you. and your project name. So my first test, and it's going to be saved in this location. So sorry about that. Let's keep me out. Okay, so you have this, and just hit create, and then you wait for it to load your whole scene. It takes a bit of time if you're first time opening it. Yeah. So should be, yeah. So we got the third person template over here. So okay, so how do you move around? So this is really important. Okay, so we move around. It's a bit different and it's a bit tricky to move in this. So you gotta hold the right mouse button, and you can first of all rotate your scene with that itself. Move the mouse by holding the right mouse, the right click, sorry. And to move, you know, like how you move in games, you hold the right click and you move with WADS. Yeah. So W is forward, A is left, D is right, S is going back. Okay, and yeah, okay, so every time you move, you need to hold the right click on the mouse and you move around. So pretty straightforward. And if you want to just, you know, at one point go up and down, you hold both the right click and the left click. So first you hold the right click on your mouse and then left click and then drag your mouse up, down, left or right. So this is like the panning mode of Unreal Engine. Yeah, I know it is what it is. I'm sorry. I didn't make this. Okay, so right, so you can also left click on your mouse and rotate your screen, or right click, both works. And how do you move inside? You go here. So first thing, of course, if there's an object and if you want to move the object, you gotta click on the object, of course. And how you know you've clicked on an object is this yellow outline that you get over the object. So you have only clicked this object, selected it, and again WER, same as Maya. So for W for move, E for rotate, and R for scaling. So W, E to rotate, and R to scale your entire thing. Right. Another thing here is snapping. So say at the moment it's moving. I'm not sure if you see over here, there's a grid over here. So at the moment it's moving, you know, increments of every, I think, 10. So that's the grid size that's there. So if you want to not make it move with grips, with the grid, you can just hold 1, and now it's going to be more smooth. So if you want to lock it in some grid, you can, you know, choose whatever you want. If I choose 50, it's going to move like 50 every grid size of every 50. And same thing for the rotate and the scale. So if I go to the rotate, and if I change thing to like 45, it's only going to move 45 degrees. I mean, it comes in handy when you're blocking out game levels. But if you don't want to use it, you can just change everything to the most minimum size. So, you know, you can just move around very fluidly. And yeah, okay, so that's the viewport. That was like the most important thing to show you guys how to move around, because I struggled when I first started Unreal Engine 4. So you have modes. So this mode, as we call, with the directional light and the sun, is called the lit mode. The unlit mode is when there's no realism or when there's no lights and shadows. So what's good about this mode is it's not going to take up more of your RAM. So it runs very smooth. So you can place the models in the unlit mode, like the very heavy models, like say you have like a 1 GB model. So you go to the unlit mode, you import that 1 GB model, you bring it in the screen, in the scene, and then you move around very, easily. And then you have different modes like the wireframe mode. Of course, this is going to show you how your meshes are. So by default, the meshes are all triangulated in the game engines. So I think you can use both triangulated or quads in game engines. It doesn't really matter so much. So you can go to reflections, and yeah, they're like very different modes. So if you want to test out something, you can do that. The lighting only. Right. So okay, that's good. This is one entire panel. So if you want the 4 panel how we had in Maya or Grasshopper, you can just click this on the right, sorry. We have this, maximizes this viewport. And then you can, go to, right. So by default, everything's on wireframe. So I think if you go to lit mode, you can see the model better. Why am I not able to see it? Okay, that's the perspective. That should be the top. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it's there. It's just very zoomed out. It's just very zoomed in. Yeah, okay, so you guys get the point. And if you want maximize viewport, you just click on either one over here on the right. So let's go back to perspective mode, and yeah, we're back. Right, so here on the right, you have 2 panels. The first one on the top is the outliner, like how we had in Maya. So all your scenes and all your objects are going to be in this. So you know everything that's in your scene. And it's a very friendly habit, which I'm giving you a tip. Please, please, please create folders for everything and organize your files, because if you put a lot of stuff, it's going to get lost and you may never find any model in your scene. And that has happened to me a lot of times. So that's why. And by default, Unreal Engine is asking you to do it by, having it organized itself in its default scenes. So you see block 3. So if you click one, shift, click all the others. So you see that this entire thing is one block that they've made. They just made like different objects, and it's all one entire block. So this is block 3, and probably this is block 2 and block 1. So that's how you need to organize. And how you do it is you just go on top. So this entire thing is your entire map, the 3rd-person map. And here, probably in the most, like anywhere, right click, go create folder, and it's going to create a folder, new folder for you, which you can edit, rename to whatever, say meshes. And if I have any meshes which I want to import, I put it in this folder. Just drag and drop it. Right, so I don't want even these. I think I can create a folder called extras and switch all this and that. So now it's very clean, and I like it like that. It makes my life easier. And project file is out of date. Just ignore it for now. It doesn't really matter. So all these pop-up messages, just dismiss them unless you get something called as compiling shaders. So when you get compiling shaders, just let it compile. It may take like 2-3 minutes, but what it's actually doing is trying to read your textures and everything, and it's trying to bring it in the scene itself. So let it do its thing and not be worried about it if it takes like sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes. And if your file is like really big, it may take up to half an hour to read all your textures. But once it's done, it's never going to do it again. So that's one thing you gotta keep in mind in game engines. Right, so you have the outliner here as we discussed, and over here you have the properties panel. So if I select one object over here, and if I go to my properties panel, it's going to show me everything that I can do with that object which I've selected. So by default, the first one is the transform. So you have the location, rotation, and scale. You can scale it or not. So you can see how it's, affecting the entire thing. Yeah, so static mesh is basically, if you click on it, double click on it, it takes you to your mesh itself. It isolates that mesh and takes you to a whole new window where it's going to show you all the properties of that mesh. So all this is a bit complex. We usually use these for games. So Pedro and I were working in a gaming company, so we were dealing with these a lot. But yeah, if you're into a game design company, then you need to know like how these work. But I think for just visualization, you don't need to worry much about it. The light mask also is fine. 512 is the best. I think the only thing which I want to change over here is the collision complexity. So for the box itself, by default, all your collisions are cubical, and since this shape is cubical itself, the project default is going to be cubical. So I don't need to change anything in this, but I'll show you when you need to change this. So yeah, so this is going in an isolated form of your object, and just seeing all the materials. So yeah, it's really overwhelming, but slowly you get into it. But I see a window preparing shaders and it's too slow to finish. My scene is empty. Preparing shaders. Leila, are you here? I'm sorry,
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So did you open the third person map, or did you open a blank scene?
The blank scene.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time to load. Yeah. So it's your first time
that's
opening. Yeah. Probably like 5-10 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Hopefully. Yeah, but if it doesn't load, just let us know so we can see. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you. Right. So right, guys. So the next one is the materials. So this will be changing a lot. So by default, it's going to create its own material, which is the grid material, which I'm sorry to say it sucks. So we're not going to use that for sure. Physics is again all related to gaming. If you want physics in your game or not, simulate physics. So I think everything else is, we don't need to cover anything else. If there is something which comes up, I will tell you guys. But for now, I think we've covered all of it. It's just the collision which we need to take care of. The materials, sometimes the static mesh, and the transform and scale. Someone raised their hand.
Yes, that's me.
Yeah, hi.
I was just going to ask about the material. When you click on it, try to edit it, there's the parent, and then there's the second material, like physical material.
Yeah.
But there's also the parent material. Do you know what that is about?
Yeah, so imagine if so if I have a level, and if I've created some objects in the level, I'm not sure how to explain the most right way. So a parent material is something where it's like the master material, and basically inside levels you create different substances or different instances of that parent material. So you can change the instances, but if you change the parent material, all the instances will change along with it. I'm not sure if you follow, but it's like a it's like master file. So if you change the master file, all the instances of it changes. Like, do you get it? What I mean? I think
Yeah,
Pedro can answer it if
I
you
think
don't
I
get it.
will. Yeah, sorry.
Sure.
Right.
Basically, the master material is the one that contains all the procedure you want to work with. However, the instance, it's where you start playing with those actual parameters. So
Yeah.
for example, with one master, you can have tons of instances that follows the rule of the main master. So I think sounds weird the first time you use Unreal. For me, it was also weird to work with masters and instances. But believe me, once you understand the logic of this kind of hierarchy between the master material that contains the procedure and the instance that contains all the different attributes set, you start working faster. And
Yeah.
I know that it's Unreal Engine is pretty well known for crashing very frequently. It usually crash. So the more master materials you have, the more probability or possibility to crash your software. So the instance, in a way, helps you not to crash your computer. That's what I know. But anyway, it will crash in some moment. It will crash. But I think the instance makes your procedure to be more organized in a way. I know it's a weird logic, but
Yeah.
but believe me, I think it's the best decision they make is to create masters and instances for materials.
I already did quite a few projects in Unreal, but every time I create materials, for example, I make separate materials in the contents. And I mean, I see the parent material, but I have no clue how to use it. So I was just curious if I'm being inefficient and there's I don't know, a certain mechanic that's making things easier or something, because I don't use it actively.
I mean, the only example which I can think of at the moment is if I have like two objects and if I have a single master material, but so I can apply two different copies or the instances of the master on both of them. So suppose the key of the master material was having a pattern of noise. So I can apply that particular noise to both of them. But if I don't want them both to have the same parameter of a noise, I can change that in the copies which I've made. So the main texture is a noise which is there in master, but you can change the parameters of it in the copies. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the only thing. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Happy to know. Okay, moving on, because you got a lot of things to cover actually. Now that I'm thinking. Okay, so right, so moving on, right? So we have this. This is the properties panel that's set. If you want to play in the game, like if you want to play the character in a level which you've created, there's this level. So if you click on it, you get this mannequin, and you can just play it as you play in the game, which is quite cool. Yeah. So all of these objects have collisions, and that's why collisions are so important in games, because it basically like how you see over here is that small leg that's going up, like it's floating. So I would say that's not a good collision for the character. But since it's a default scene and they just want to show us how it works, that's how it is. So yeah, so just keep that in mind. The collisions are very, very important when you're playing a game. Right, okay. So like to come out of this mode, you just have to press escape and you come out of it. Yeah, it's all about hierarchy, yeah. Right, so here in this, you have different modes which you can change, which is really, really cool. The select mode is by default the mode which we are in. So in this, we select and move all the objects in the scene. The landscape mode is, it's a more micro scale where you can create like these mountains and stuff. So if you click on create, it's going to create like a whole, it's going to create like a ground plane where you can say sculpt mountains or hills. That's one cool thing about this. So you can easily make your backgrounds if you have it in the shape of hills. There's another mode called the foliage mode, and this is what I use a lot when I want to scatter, say, okay, let me show you the example over here. Right, so you see these rocks, I've like quickly scattered them on the scene instead of placing each rock and then scaling, rotating, like to make them look very different from each other. Like they're all the same rock. Can even show you the rock. They're all this like one rock over here, which is just this piece, but they just made in a way that it looks very different. So that's where painting comes, the foliage painting. So basically you drop your model over here. I need to even show you about like all these things. But yeah, so you basically have a model, you drop it over here, and then you can paint it around the scene. So if you want, like say bushes, so you take an obj file of a bush, you drop it over here, and then you just have to like paint your way around the scene wherever like you want. So this mode is really good. I use this mesh paint. I think I don't use this mode a lot because it's basically to create vertex points on the vertex painting on the meshes. And I don't really know why we have this here. Probably because when you want to make your own materials or something. Modeling mode is something that they've added in Unreal 5. It has a bunch of extra stuff that you can play around with. So you have stairs, boxes. You can, take this and drop it in the scene. So you can do all that over here. Taking all these things, and these other modes are the fracture mode is if suppose you have like a building and you want to like break it down, like form like some sort of a destruction sort of an effect, you can just fracture it and it's going to do all that. So brush editing, okay, I don't use this. Animations, yeah, animating objects in the scene, very simple ones like selecting and moving them around. So yeah, so that's the different modes that we have in Unreal Engine. Here in this get content is one of the most important things where you get to place all the stuff that you can place on the scene. So the first ones are the actors, the character, the player start. So these are basically, if you have the models like humanoids and stuff, you can, put them on the scenes if you have them. And the player start is like, we by default have this over here. So if you go to the outliner, you'll be seeing something called as a player start. So whenever you start or play the level, the character is going to spawn in this point. And you can move this wherever that you want by again going and moving it around. And I think by default it's facing that way. And if I play, it should, yeah, okay. So if you want to make it face somewhere else, you can rotate it. And I think this blue arrow is going to show like where the character is going to face, right? Yeah, that's how that works. So that's so the basic is basically all that. Yeah, so the next ones are the lights. Since we already have the lights in the scene from the default template, if you go to lighting, you'll see all the different lights that have been added. And if you want to change something, you can just select this and you go to the properties panel. I'm sorry, I mean my screen is a bit small. Need to somehow fix that. Okay, so where is my direction light? Right. So you'll see all the icons over here. It's a bit sad, but it is what it is. It's basically like floating around in the space. So if you click on direction light, so what you can change in direction light is just the rotation, because you can't change scale of sun or position of the sun. So you can only change the X, or I would say the XY axis of it. So that's the blue. So if you move that around, you can change where the sun is being affected from. And that's where it is. And if you want to change the intensity and stuff, you can go down to the properties, and there's a whole bunch of stuff which you can play around with, like the temperature, like how in photography we have 6500 is like the basic one. If you go lower, it's going to turn more say brownish, and if it's more high, it's going to turn more blue. So yeah, you can basically change all that in the scene itself and how your game level is going to be, which is so cool. And the intensity by default is 3 lux. You can change it to 5, or you can go lower if it's like if it's a night scene. And if in case it is a night scene, you can go to light, and maybe I would like to put a point light, and you can see that there's this light that's been created, this icon, and it's having an effect of this bounding region or this bounding sphere, which you can again select the light, or from here, point light from the outliner, and go to intensity and play around with it, move it around, keep adjusting it however you like with your level. So yeah, I mean that's pretty, and what's cool is, I mean, after you do that, suppose if I have my player start from here, if I play it, it's gonna be a very spooky level, like say like you're playing a horror game and you have everything like dark. So yeah, so these are other ways to change the environment in your scene. And if you want to add fog, there's something. So the shapes are again the cube spheres you can add in the scenes. Cinematic is basically the cameras which you add and where you want to take the shots from, change the focal length. So you can use this whenever you're about to do the post-production or about to, render out your stuff. Yeah, the important thing is the visual effects. It's more like the post-production itself, especially this one, which I'll explain at the end, because I think these are it's more straightforward. So let's go with how long do I have? Oh, okay, I got like 12 minutes. I thought I went overtime, because it's really fun for me to work on this software. So let's delete the point light and go back to, yeah, the direction light, change it to 3 lux. And yeah, okay, so visual effects, you have sky atmosphere, which you already have in the scene. So you can hide this effect and see how it changes the entire environment. So it's going to give you a bit more of an idea how the effect works. So I think sky atmosphere is like just giving a more brighter skylight to your entire scene, and trying to make the sky look like sky. And exponential height fog is where you add your fog, which if you need to make the mood of your scene very dramatic, which I love. Like I really love to add fog. It just makes your entire scene look so dramatic and very cinematic. Right. Okay, so right. Sorry about that. So Silent Hill, yes. Yeah, so you can play around with this. There are a lot of different things like the fog max opacity, fog density. So unfortunately, I can't go over everything. It's up to you guys to, go through it. I'm just showing you the different things which you can do. And depending on things which you like, you can go ahead and research about that more. Sphere reflection is obviously like how you have in other render engines. If you have a sphere in the middle, it's going to reflect all the objects are going to have a reflection based on your sphere reflection capture that you have. So if you're going to add it to the middle of the scene, so that it reflects the entire space. But if you don't add it, it's fine. It barely even makes a difference. Others are pretty much not necessary. These are the most important. Volumetric cloud is quickly, I think you don't have it. I just added to show you how it looks like. So you can change a lot about the clouds. So if I've selected that, and if I go to, yeah, so so you see you can change the placement of your clouds, make it more cloudy, or however you want the horizon to be. Again, up to you. I can't show you everything. Sorry. Visual effects. Yeah. So now the most important thing. Okay. So the post-process volume, I encourage you to add right at the end. After you've set up your entire scene and you think that it looks good, well, guess what? The post-process volume is going to make it look even much more better, because post-process volume is like Photoshop or Lightroom, where you can change the exposure and the brightness and almost anything, or the color hue of your scene itself. So the post-process, if I've selected the post-process, and if I go here, you can see already it has so many options like blue, exposure, chromatic, apparition, all the things that you find in photography. So for example, the bloom, if I check the intensity, you can see that it's adding a lot of bloom in our scene. So when you play the scene, you can already see that the vibe is like very bloom, like you can like barely, it's like very hot or something. So that's there. So you can add bloom, you can add exposure, like if you want to make it very dark or very bright, it's all up to you. But just keep this in mind whenever you put post-process and you want to mess around, just make sure that if you go all the way down, you must be, so you must see this infinite extent unbound. So by default, post-process volume only creates this sort of a thing, like a box. And all the stuff that you do, like your blue, the exposure, motion blur, is going to be just inside this box. So we don't want this to be just a box. We want it to be throughout our entire level. So just check this always whenever you apply a post-process volume. And after that, you go mess around with the temperature of your scene. You can, make it very blue, and you can see how it looks now. It's very blue. You can go make it very orange if you want, add some tint. make it very, a different vibe. Right. So this is everything that's over here, which I use. Others are pretty much, when you're really making a game and you're using blueprints to interact with objects. So that's when you use all this. Hopefully, if next year we come back for episode 2, I can show you how to actually make one entire game, a small game with the blueprints. So yeah, okay. Now the most important thing to get the content browser where you're gonna place all your OBJ files. So you hold Control and Space to get this whole thing, and you can just put it a bit up. Just go on the edge and drag it up. Right. So at the moment, you can see here in the content folder. If you don't see this, you can just go to all, click all. So you go to the first root directory of your entire folder. So this content folder is going to include all the files, the OBJ files, the materials which you have in the scene. So yeah, just keep in mind that everything that you add, like OBJ files, materials, you have to add it in this content browser. So Control and Space should be your friend. Most of the time, you should always use Control and Space to drag stuff in, and Control Space to bring it down. So by default, the content browser is always on in Unreal Engine 4, but in Unreal Engine 5, they thought it would be a brilliant idea to minimize it, so we can use Control Space to bring it up, which I feel is a bit annoying because we need to use this always. Okay, so I go to content. So these are all the things that are in the scene. So I don't mess around with this. I can right click here in empty, and you can see that you can do so many things inside this, where you can add a blueprint class, you can add a different level or a material, or a Niagara system, which I'll explain tomorrow. It's like a particle system in Unreal Engine. So more particle simulations for you guys. But in this case, I just want to add a new folder and type this meshes and go inside it, and it's empty mesh. Right, so all this is very, if you know, then you know. Other than that, I can't explain each and every one. There's just so many things in Unreal, but I'll definitely going to explain the things which you're going to use to visualize. Right, so you go to the meshes folder, which created, go to import to game meshes, and find your the OBJ file which you saved from either Maya or Houdini. Right, so I don't want to find the files, so I'm already going to show you the files which I have. So that's, but yes, I'm going to show you. So this was the mesh folder which I've added in the content in this level. I added another folder called models. So and in this, after you import your model, you will get the model itself, and you'll get a material which is attached to the model. So just be mindful to rename all your materials with the model which is associated with it. Since I was in a hurry, I didn't do it. So yeah, you can clearly see the mess which I've made. So it's always good to organize your files. So in good practice, I would say create a folder called models and create another folder called materials. And once you have imported something, and if you have this material, just move this to the materials folder, so you have everything organized. And I think the way you do that is you just have to, okay, that's right, a sec. You should be able to move this. Just simple drag and drop. Oh, okay, sorry. If I right click, go to copy file. Okay, I've never done this because in Unreal 4 it's really easy. Okay, so I would say create the material folder here itself and just drag and drop it over here and right over here, and it's going to move it. Sorry, I don't know how to move it to the folder back. I'll search and I'll find that out. Okay, so once you have it over here, you may have the model. Simply drag and drop it in the scene. And by default, it's going to be very small because the models which you made in Maya and Houdini are not scaled. So if you want, before you export, you scale them up by a lot, because Unreal Engine works in different centimeters, so it really scales down your models. But you can always go here to the model. It say I would go for 50 by 50 by 50, and yeah, so right, so I have this. So by default, if you bring stuff from Houdini, it's going to change the axis of rotation. So you need to go to the x-axis and just write 90, and then it's going to be fine. So that's your first layer, which I have imported onto Unreal Engine. Right, so, and I did that whole thing. So I have imported all of them. And if in case you want to make them all in the same place, what I did was I took one as a reference. I went to location, I copied it, and I went to the OBJ file which I want to copy, which I want to paste it in, and go to paste. So all of them come to one single, place. So just make sure you have the scaling. All of them is the same scale. As you can see, all of them are like 50, 50, 50, and all of them are at 90 degrees. And then it'll work fine. Right. After you have imported the model, you can play around. So one thing is there that you won't be able to go inside the model, because by default it has a collision. If you double click on your mesh, and if you go to that collision tab which I was talking about, so by default you have collision complexity set to project default, and project default means use simple collisions as complex. So by default it's going to create a box, like how I said, a simple collision in Unreal Engine is a cubical form. So it's going to create a bounding box all around this entire thing, and it's going to use that as a collision. So you can't go inside it because it's all a box. So just keep them in mind. So if you want to fix that issue, you gotta go here and to use complex collision as simple. So then it's going to read your entire geometry and just create that geometry itself as its own collision. And then you should be able to walk around, and if you jump, it's going to collide with just the surface. And yeah, if in case if you want, you can even go on top of your models and create and move around in that as well. So after you have the collision set, you can mess around and play and see how your model is. It's really cool. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. And then just create some nice shots. So at this moment, this shot is like really cool for me. It's like a sci-fi sort of thing which I see on top. Yeah, so that's, I think, sorry, I couldn't cover materials and I don't want to go overtime. So materials I'll cover first thing tomorrow, I promise. But for today, I think we can stop because it's a lot to take in. Yeah, I might have missed this. When you export using file mode, does it automatically pack texture? If you're creating an OBJ, it should, but wait, so you have a texture attached in Houdini itself, yeah? I think that was EO.
If you're working in Maya and you want to export your texture, you need to bake it first. There is a way to bake, at least from Maya, there is a way to bake texture as a JPEG to import that later into Unreal. The only issue with Maya, at least, is that the more complex is your geometry, the harder it gets for the software to get your final texture ready. That's the only issue. But you can do it. I know that at least from Maya, it's easier than Houdini. I always had a hard time to export textures from Houdini to Unreal. I know there is a way. I know there's a tutorial from this guy Junichiro Junikawa, which is a Japanese artist, and I know he has a procedure to export not only materials but whole attributes from Houdini to Unreal. Let me look for that video. I will share it into the Discord channel because it's just 3 hours video long. But maybe it can help some of you to export attributes attributes in general. Let me look for it. It's a really long video, but maybe it can help. I will do it later. We'll do it later. But in any case, if someone wants to export textures from Maya, maybe tomorrow I can help you because it's not that hard. You just need to set first the UV mapping correctly. Then depending on, you need to increase a lot the subdivision of your geometry, then you can export it. But of course, the more subdivisions you have, the more time it will take for the computer to export the texture. But you can do it. You can do it. Okay, guys. Sorry, because today we won't be able to review the boards because we don't want to stay here like 5 hours. It's unfair for you. So maybe tomorrow we can start by seeing the boards. Unless you want to ask something now, I think it's a good time to ask. Or maybe Aman, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to show you guys 2 things before I go, because I think it's going to help you at least set up your scene properly with your background assets. First thing, if you go to this one, you can enter Quixel Bridge. You have Quixel Bridge once you install Unreal Engine 5. And what Quixel Bridge is, it's, it has 16,877 assets. So there's no excuse for, I can't find, background assets. Right. So yeah, if you go down here, first thing that you need is to log in. I think if you first time open Bridge, it's going to ask you to log in. So use your Epic. This is one glitch that happens. Yeah, so use your Epic sign in and log in. And after that, you can go to the 3D assets. And here, if I write nature, and there's a lot of bunch of things which you can do. So if I want to go to seabeds and create like a Thai beach coral, I view it, I go to download, and it basically downloads the entire thing. It doesn't take long, it takes like 1 to 2 minutes. Then after that, you'll be able to see or click on this add button. So after you do that, it basically adds it to the content browser. Now the content browser, I just explained to you where you control shift and it adds everything over there. I will quickly show you how it's done. Okay, so since I already have some stuff, I can show you. So after you click on that add button, you get a folder in the content called Megascans. And in this, they create their own folder called 3D assets. And these are 3 OBJ or 3 models which I took from Quixel Bridge for this particular level, you can go here inside, and here the blue line is the OBJ model itself. The green is the material that's attached. So by default, you can just click and drag it to the scene, and it's already going to have the texture attached on it, and just increase the scale in the properties and just move it up or down. So you have already a nice textured model set for you from Megascans or Pixel Bridge. One last thing. Okay, so imagine if you have a floor and you want to scatter a lot of stuff. So, okay, so this floor I've already used to scatter, so I don't think it's going to work on this. So I'm just going to create another floor over here, and I go to this select mode and go to foliage, the one which I was showing you before, and control space, go to my 3D assets which I've made. Probably I'll take, what is loading? Okay, I'll just take this again. I hope it works. Okay, since I have already done this, I can just remove all of these guys. So go to select, go to remove, delete. Okay, so we just work with this. You go to foliage and drop your material which you want to sculpt or paint. You click on this, then you should, instead of select, you go to paint and you click on this, and here you see brush size. So you can see you can change the brush size however that you want. Intensity, how much you want the material or the OBJ files to come in this brush size. That's what it's going to do. And here, so at the moment, let's see how it does. So it's very small, like you can see it. I've brushed or painted some, it's really small. So you click on this, it opens another drop down over here where it's mesh settings. Here you go to painting, and there's something called as scaling. So the scaling by default is like 2 or 1. So I think like 5 by maybe 10. And here you can see you can already, like, scatter nice, backgrounds or scenes for yourself. And after you're done, you can just go back to select mode, and all this is one entire thing. So you can move it around or delete it. And yeah, if you play again, you'll be able to see all these things. I mean, it doesn't look good, obviously, but I just wanted to show you how you can create really quickly nice assets as a background. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Nice. Thank you so much, Aman. Okay, guys. I think we are done today for today. Please try to update the board. The only suggestion that I may ask, please, I will stop. First of all, I will stop the live streaming. So for those who are watching us on the YouTube channel, thank you so much, guys. See you later. Let me stop the live stream now. Nice.